average
listen to me.
veterans?
I'm not speaking for the mayor's office or anything. I'm not at all. I'm speaking right
Take
now
care
as
of
a
its
private
veterans,
person.
dude. I'm a fourth-generation combat veteran.
Bro.
This city don't take care of its veterans,
Listen,
man.
I know.
I see that pin.
I know.
First hand cop, second Marine Division.
You get your
You know what I mean?
right? Get your political donations,
I
right?
bought my house.
You're some paid people. You just don't have any heart. You're just an embarrassment. But they're greedy and they want to build more than that. They want to line their pockets. They don't live in this neighborhood. They're not from this community. The builders. What does that mean? The community should have some input and choice as of what was built. We fought to change our. How are you?
I'd like to talk to you for a second, when you have a minute.
We met with Al and Al Bianco. It was a tough meeting, but we're gonna have those meetings.
Yeah, you can leave.
Got it.
Excuse me. I'm live on YouTube. Would you like to tell me about this event today?
Sure.
And why you came out?
Sure.
All right. Tell me about this event today and why you came out to support
This
it.
event was really about to say that as a city, we need to make room for affordable housing, for people with justice involvement, for veterans, for seniors, and throughout New York City, we should be laying the foundation to welcome people into our community. We have a significant homeless problem, and we can't pretend like it doesn't exist. And we, at every community, should be opening up their arms, saying, how can I be part of the solution? And part of the solution is permanent housing. It is permanent housing where people can be connected to a community, where people can be connected to services, and be a contributing member of that community. And so today was the opportunity to say, Mayor Adams, we support you. City Council, we support you to bring about housing, affordable housing in communities throughout New York City. And that is about taking action when we see a critical issue. And we've been seeing a critical issue. At the Fortune Society, we see about 9,000 people a year. 20% of the people we see are homeless. That means they're living in our shelters. That means as a taxpayer, we are investing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to house them in shelters that we know are not the best option. They are hardworking people who are running the shelters, trying to do the right thing, but they are battling a flood. And what we ought to be doing is building permanent housing in communities throughout New York City, and that's what today's event was about. It was about saying, how do we walk with love in our heart to say, we want to be part of the solution.
There's obviously been there's a counter protest, and there's been a lot of opposition in the neighborhood to this development proposal. The critics say that it's the beginning of an upzoning project for the entire neighborhood that would bring much higher density to the neighborhood that it can't handle, that would change the entire neighborhood. And they also say that the affordable housing provided by this development is not really terribly affordable, that it's closer to market rate. What do you say to those criticisms?
We're saying affordable housing, meaning that the average New Yorker can afford it. And that's what we're encouraging. And at Fortune Society, the project that we are building out is called Just Home. It's a building that's on the Jacoby campus that will provide up to 50 units of supportive housing for people who happen to have justice involvement but have serious medical issues. And right now, either languishing in hospitals or languishing in our jails because there's no place to put them. They can't be cared for in the shelter. And so at Fortune Society, we have been running supportive housing for over 20 years. We have a building called the Castle on 140th Street between Broadway and Riverside. We opened up Castle Gardens, that's between Broadway and Riverside on 140th Street. We just opened up the Mandela Building on Washington Avenue in the Bronx for seniors who happen to be justice involved. We know when you provide housing, affordable and supportive housing for people, people can thrive. It doesn't diminish the community, it strengthens the community. And so at Fortune Society, we have been advocating for affordable, supportive housing for decades because it's part of the solution. It's part of the solution to our homelessness challenge. It's part of our solution to criminal justice and the way we use criminal justice. And it's about time that we start making smart investments, investing in people, not prisons.
So you're here with a bunch of different groups. Can you tell me what all the different organizations who came out today are?
Well, I think it was a diverse set of voices. You had Kips Bay, you had the 32BJ, you had the unions, you had a diverse set of voices who were saying, listen, we ought to be doing this. I had a gentleman just come up to me who said he's in the union. He works every single day, and he said he's living in a room, and he's looking for a studio apartment. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we are talking about. That's the affordable housing that we need for people. That you got a man that works every single day in the union, and he's renting a room because he can't afford a one-bedroom, a studio.
All right, well, thank you very much for talking with me.
Thank you. And your name?
Amy.
Amy.
I'll give you my information.
Yes.
From NYC yourself.
Yep.
Are you with the union?
No.
Trying to find. I'm a retiree, and
Okay.
I'm trying to find somebody I want
Thank you.
to talk to because these guys are no friends of labor. They have paid fines. They've been abusing their employees, and I think the union should be a little aware of who they're getting involved with. It's all documented. It was through the labor courts. They were found that they were shorting employees' salaries and all. And I want to challenge the union now. Try and unionize this store.
I think.
Okay? Try and unionize the store and see what kind of response you get from the owners. You know, they're you know, I don't want to accuse anybody. I was a union member. I was a district shop steward, 32BJ. I left to go to Yonkers Police back in '99. And I just find it a travesty that they've polluted these unions and these union members to think that these are the heroes of the workers. Look at their track record.
Yeah, but I think it's
Look at
important
their-
for us. You know, I'm from Fortune Society, and for us, it's really about affordable housing. Really,
This project is a for-profit venture
I don't know.
by private developers.
I don't know who the
It's
private
not an
developer is,
affordable housing project.
but
It's being
here's
misrepresented.
what
This is
we're
one of
talking
the
about.
issues.
We're talking about Just Home, which is
I'm
supportive
familiar,
housing.
very familiar with Just
It's on the
Home.
Jacoby campus.
I'm also familiar with Fortune Society's record. It's not as sparkling as it appears to be. Recidivism rates amongst Fortune Society clients is higher than the average who's just left in the street.
I think you don't. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're
I've
right.
been doing research. I know
Yeah,
you
but
guys entered into this.
that was a flawed project. And if you
1974.
read the report, it would say that the
Okay.
analysis was flawed. But let me say, we've been around for 55 years, and I can tell you,
Mr. Solvay.
I can tell you, personally, Fortune Society changes lives by providing the space for people to realize and overcome the institutional and decades old barriers that people face. And it's unfortunate that when someone comes home, I'm formerly incarcerated, and I have never met anybody who came home and said, I can't wait to go back to prison. No one. But here's what happens. They come home, they face barrier after barrier after barrier. What Fortune Society has been doing is providing opportunities to address those barriers through economic development, jobs, housing, education, drug treatment, mental health. And it is an investment. It's an investment that we ought to be making as a society to say,
But
listen,
we need
when
to look at
someone
our
pays their
payoff on that
dues,
investment.
when someone pays their dues, how do we reintegrate them back into the community?
I agree with you, it's a problem, but the Fortune Society model is moderate at best. As I said, there's more failures
have
than
absolute-
success.
I think we have
I've been
absolute
doing more
disagreement on that.
research. I've been doing more research. All of the positive reviews I'm finding online come from the Fortune Society themselves.
I think you.
I've spoken with people in Lexington, on the part of Lexington, here in the Bronx. Okay, they feel Fortune Society is a failed project.
We've been
I
around
understand
for
we all need
55
to.
years, and
We all need to work together.
We
And
do.
I have
do.
friends who were incarcerated for long periods of time,
There you go.
and quite the opposite. I had a friend of mine came out after 22 years. He couldn't wait to go back in. He couldn't function out here. So I understand what you're talking about.
That's
okay.
speaking value.
Okay, I understand. But we need to identify programs that work and scrap those that don't. Unfortunately,
And we need to make
the
investments
government
that
continues
matter.
funding failing programs. Okay,
You know,
and
I
we
mean,
need
I
to
think that's your
examine.
opinion. That's your opinion. That is not my
You
opinion.
know, statistics can be manipulated. I understand that too.
Thank you.
But all right. Oh, okay. Sure.
I think if you were to say, okay, hey, we're building houses. If you have rights to build, we could do a house.
Yeah. We keep getting notified very late on meetings and decisions. For example, we were in a static meeting last night when we found out about this event this morning at about 8:00.
Long time. I got my second shot. We didn't take this back.
You gotta like step up small and go around this whole most of the buildings and they want it.
Yes. That's what I. Yeah, hi. Are you a reporter?
No, I wasn't aware of the event until you know, until like 11:30. So I unfortunately I missed it. I was streaming it.
Yeah, I'm getting it. Oh, wait.
If you're adding numbers to an already overburdened by over 50% system, how is it not going to have a negative impact? Add to that now the immigrants being bused here, that the mayor announced that may be fast-tracked into our education system. How is this system going to be sustained? And now we're talking about increasing the burden with another 450 in this particular area. We need to address all of these other concerns before we move on to building up more. I also want to say further in regards to the project itself. It's being portrayed as an affordable housing project, when in fact it is a for-profit project being undertaken by private developers. And the union being out here today to support them is a travesty when, if you look at the records in 2018, these very developers that own this supermarket were found guilty of shorting their employees' pay, cutting their hours, not paying them for hours worked. They literally paid, I believe it was over $200,000 in fines in 2018 for their anti-labor practices. So I challenge the unions right now, come to this store, unionize this store tomorrow. If they want to show that they have the heart and they care about the unions and the union workers, well then the owners should put their money where their mouth is. They're operating a non-union store right now. These developers, the other thing, these developers, they're not developers. They've never even built a doghouse. How can the city approve these people who are unscrupulous towards their workforce, have no development experience, and have yet to secure funding for this project? How possibly could the city grant them the variance that they're seeking? It baffles my mind how this is even considered.
I just want to get back to one of the first things you were saying, you know, about the school and the kind of like sewers backing up. You say all that to say that it's a pretty congested area and that's something to worry about.
Oh, absolutely. The area has become congested. These environmental studies and the traffic studies were done during the height of the pandemic, when schools were closed, traffic was shut down, business was shut down. So a model was used that's not realistic. I believe the traffic study was done in November of 2020. The city was an entire state of lockdown. That is why the report finds there's no impact, because there was no traffic at that time. If the city wants to reopen and once again become a productive, thriving city, we're going to have much more traffic. And that traffic study was absolutely unrealistic and should not be used for any future decisions. As was the police calls for service. These were all skewed by the pandemic. And these are the numbers that the city is dependent on to make their decisions. So I propose that the whole system is flawed. At the very least, it needs to be taken back a step and see. I've researched what happened after upzoning in Long Island City and Dumbo. In Long Island City, 20 years after the upzoning, there are still grammar schools operating at 200% of capacity. The developers have moved on, taken their profit, and the city and the taxpayers are left to figure out how to deal with the destruction that was left behind. And this is real people, this is community. You want to talk about justice and equality, you're a big justice guy? Well, there's no justice for the people going to a school. How are students getting educated? How does that show justice? Further, our neighborhood is being portrayed in some of the media as being racist. Well, according to the 2020 census, Bronx Neck is now 66% minority. It's only 32 or 33% white. Okay, for all those years, Bronx Neck was a predominantly white neighborhood. No projects like this were proposed. None. Everything was left alone. Now that Bronx Neck is a minority neighborhood in the Bronx, now the developers want to cash in on that minority neighborhood and they want to run. They want to get out of here. So I asked, where's the racism? Where is the racism? Where?
I don't want you to get
No. We are an absolutely diverse community. My neighbor of 37 years just sold their house on Saturday. The new owners moved in. They're a Dominican family. They don't speak English. Mother, father, 2 daughters. I spoke with the new owner on Saturday when he moved in, and he told me he bought this house in this neighborhood and invested in this neighborhood because it is a quiet, peaceful, nice place to raise your family. And that's why minorities are investing in Bronx Neck. And again, this is when the developers choose to cash in and run away. So,
Thank you for your time. Can I get a picture of your sign? Can you just hold it up for me?
sure, you want?
This is not an, this is, yeah. And I was just like, I started to think that zoning on the.
Good talking to you, Mike.
I'm not gonna lie.
Then there's new things, for example, spoke about the schools. One thing I would note that just a few years ago, when the school expansion was proposed, quite literally the same group of people opposed the school expansion, calling it too big, quote, that they would never be able to fill all of these seats, pointing to the current zoning. Now that apartment buildings have been proposed, all of a sudden even the expanded school is too full. So I think that's absurd.
Okay. All right.
Now, I live in this council district. I support this project. We desperately need more housing, more affordable housing. That's why I joined in New York. Because we really need things like this. Just home. I support those projects.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Also, I would mention, you mentioned the traffic study. The city's Department of Transportation had already resumed typical traffic data collection at that point. So it was already good enough for official purposes for the city of New York. It's good enough for the application.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm not gonna, unlike many of, I got no problem speaking to you.
Okay.
I would ask you to look at the statistics on the school. You're talking idealistically. I'm talking factually. The school is latest 159% over capacity, according to the Department of Education, the Board of Education. So how can you refute? How can you refute the data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Yeah. I guess you're a little afraid to face facts. But that's quite all right.
This area is built by affordable housing.
Do you know what happens after the project? Look at the study. The Map Society did a
I
long
live in
study.
Long Island City.
Okay,
So
what's going to result is a less affordable, more white.
There's more
Look at the, just look at the map studies, and all the facts are there. But you guys aren't interested in facts.
And I'm very sad over the situation with the upzoning because, as a former school teacher, number one, I feel that this new building, school has 2 elementary schools. He is 14 and he is 72. Then it has 1 junior high school and then 1 high school that services the area, immediately services the area. And they're overcrowded as is. Plus, it's a 2-fare zone. It's going to make it difficult for these people who are moving in. Parking is already an issue all over East Fremont. And on top of that, you don't have really access to the ferry, which is another avenue, another way of getting into Manhattan. So I think it's an injustice to the people that are going to be moving here and those that are here, because this supermarket has serviced the area for all the years my parents have lived here, 52 years, or probably before. And so we're going to be stuck with one supermarket in the area, which is what the senior citizens can get to who don't drive. I mean, really, this is where the prices are going to be better for them. They have lots of delis, but they're not going to accommodate people that have big families. So I do not understand what they're trying to do by this. Besides it being an eyesore, because then you're going to pass on Bruckner, and it doesn't have the residential feel anymore. Okay, and not everybody can afford an express bus, which is now I think it's $6.50 or something ridiculous like that. So I think this was poor planning. I think this owner of this supermarket is a sellout, and really is not. He's not giving back to the community that gave him and made him a rich man. So I don't understand how this managed to go through, and I hope it doesn't go through in the final stages, because I just don't see it happening, And I want to say I came back to the community after leaving it when I got married and had children, and I think some of my children are going to stay in the community, because this is a community that has 3 and 4 generations. So it just doesn't make sense. I think it was poor planning, and I don't think it should go through. And I think Mayor Adams should have been here today. I really think he should have come and put his money where his mouth is and appeared here today, because we all voted for him. Some of us anyway voted for him, and he's not here to represent his, his ideology.
We thought he was going to be here today, and then it seemed like at the last second we got a notification that it was off his schedule.
Yeah, well, he can't be everywhere, but he should have sent an emissary. He should have sent somebody.
Thank you for your time. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Yeah, sure. They come around the cars, and the signs that we put up, they just clear.
Thank you.
Okay, and then they
Thanks for your time, Marissa.